Kia ora koutou. Welcome and thank you for joining us for webinar 2 in a series of 6 webinars designed to support participants in Samsung's Solve for Tomorrow competition. My name is Julie Baker, the Head of Education here at Auckland's MOTAT and one of the judges for the Solve for Tomorrow competition. Also with me today is Sarah Washbrook from TENZ, who is also a competition judge, and Sarah will lead us in a karakia.
Kia ora everybody. Māori ora, kia a mātou, arahi na mātou, I a mātou mahi, ki mihia he huarahi mō te kopapa o te mātauranga rangarau. A whina atu, a whina mai. Te po e here nei I a mātou, hui taiki.
Our whakatauki for this session. Ki mahuta a matariki I te pai, ka mahuta o tātou tō makanako ki te tau. When matariki rises above the horizon, our aspirations rise to the year ahead. Speaking about the aspirations for the year ahead, making plans and setting goals. Each of our webinars for the Solve for Tomorrow competition are going to follow the same structure. We'll start with a topic and there'll be some content that we talk about for that topic, and then we'll turn to where you can get more resources on that particular topic, and then we'll look at the junior assessment, and then we'll look at the senior assessment. So today's topic is around identifying a problem. It's quite a critical part of the whole process. You need to identify a problem that is going to be able to be solvable for you, that's going to be able to be delivered in time. So we want to give you a little bit of guidance about factors that you could consider when you're looking at identifying a problem to solve in your community. Some of you may be familiar with the acronym SMART. It is an acronym that's used quite a lot when you're setting goals or KPIs. So we'll look at what SMART means and we'll apply it to when you're trying to find a problem for your project. So first of all, what you need to consider is finding something that is going to be specific and concise, not too big or too broad. So you may be really interested in solving global mental health, which is going to be quite a challenging problem to try and solve. So rather than have such a large problem like that, you're better off doing something like making it more specific, identifying, say, that people in my community are finding it hard to be able to connect with mental health providers. So you brought the problem down into something that's much more local and much more achievable. Try and make your problem as specific as possible. You need to identify a problem which is measurable as well. How am I going to be able to actually measure what I'm trying to solve and show the progress that I am making? Achievable. Can I actually achieve this? Is it something that is realistically doable with my resources, with my community, and within the time that I have got? Is it realistic? Can it be made with the resources available to me? And time bound. You have about 4 months for this project, so am I going to be able to solve this problem within that time? The design thinking process, or a design thinking process, is something that you're going to be working through when you're solving the problem. So just a quick whip through of how the design thinking process works. This is just one representation of it. It is not, the definitive representation. So you're going to start with the process of empathizing, thinking about the people who might be stakeholders in the problem that you've identified, and thinking about how they might react to that problem, what might be the issues around that problem, and helping using all of that information to define the problem more clearly, as we mentioned before, making sure it's nice and specific and tight. You'll then go through a process of ideating, coming up with a whole range of ideas, some great, some really wild, out there, blue skies thinking sort of stuff, but a whole range of ideas that might be useful solutions for that problem. You're going to narrow down on those ideas and come down to one that you're going to progress through, possibly two. And then you'll go through a stage where you are developing your concepts and you're prototyping and you're making models and you are looking at what your solution might be and you're talking to stakeholders and getting lots of feedback and really refining in on your final outcome. And then you're going to test it and you're going to evaluate it and you're going to implement it. Now this diagram that we've got here that you're looking at shows quite a linear sort of process. You can see that it has arrows that kind of jump back on the process, indicating that you aren't going to go through in a completely linear nature. You will be able to go back and revisit things. So, for example, in your testing, you may find that something isn't working, that the material that you chose wasn't available, or people weren't using it the way you expected it to be used. And so you go back and you think about, back to my ideation, what was I thinking then? What other solutions did I come up with which might help solve that problem that has arisen during that testing? So it's not a straight linear process, it's what we call an iterative process. You go back and you come through again, you go back and you come through again. In actual fact, it's probably going to look something a bit more like this. It's a bit of a mess. It feels as though it's going all over the place all the time. So please don't feel that you have to stick to a strict timeline of that process.
So we're going to focus in this webinar on the first two stages of the design process, so empathise and define. We're going to focus on how to develop a design brief for your project. So initially, the first thing that you need to do is actually start to think about what is it you can do for your project. And you need to think about what we call authentic context. So things that are real, things that are going to make an impact to your local community, things that are going to make an impact to the people that you know. So something that is real, authentic, which means that then you'll be able to get great feedback from the people that you're working with, which means that you can develop your product in a realistic way, going back to the SMART goals. Once you've identified your context that you're going to work within, then you're going to start to do some research, which will help you to write your brief. So within your brief, you really need to use what we call the W questions to help you to define your brief. So what is it? Where is it going to be? Who is it for? When is this going to take place? How is it going to take place? And if you can use those W questions, then you can actually really clearly define your design brief that you're going to work to. The research that you do will help you to define that brief. So you may have to go and talk to the stakeholder. You may have to visit the environment that the outcome is going to be working in so you can observe it. So you might have to take measurements. You can explore other things that are on the market as well. Is there something out there that is being used currently, and how could you modify and improve it to make it better to suit your solution in a more appropriate way? So there's lots of different types of research that you can do to help you to write your brief. The main point of that, though, is make sure you definitely have the feedback from the end user, the stakeholder, your key stakeholder that is going to obviously implement and use your final outcome, the person that you're trying to help, or the group of people that you are trying to help. Once you have assembled your brief, you know what you're going to do, the next part is to write down what we call attributes and specification points for the intended outcome, and we will explore that now. So attributes are basically the key points that you want your outcome or your product to do. Yeah, these can be what we call physical and functional attributes. So physical attributes are to do with what does the outcome look like? What materials is it going to be using? So you're exploring, you're thinking really about some of the research that you've done. You're not defining exactly what it's going to be, but you're starting to come up with some possible or potential attributes for the outcome. And then you've got your functional attributes, which are looking at what is it going to do, so holistically as a whole, or what are different parts going to do, and those are your attributes. Specifications are much more specific. So instead of saying something like my outcome needs to be colourful, you could say that my outcome needs to link to the colours of blue and red because this is the preferred preference of my stakeholder. So there has to be a reason for your attributes and your specifications. So who are your stakeholders? And we're going to come back to this one because this is really, really important. The key people that you are going to be talking to, well, fundamentally, it's going to be your end user. Who are you designing this for? What do they need? What do they want? And you need to go back to this when you're creating your brief and your attributes. There are other people who can be stakeholders too, and stakeholders essentially are anybody that's going to help you through your design process. So it could be people in your class that are around you that you can talk to and you can discuss things with. It could be your teacher that can help and support. You may need to contact experts from outside who might have more knowledge in the area that you're developing. And your family can help too. So stakeholders can be a wide range of people, but fundamentally the main person you're going to be talking to is the person you're designing and creating your outcome for.
So what are the judges looking for? Let's look a little bit at, in the junior category, years 7 to 10, what is it that the judges are going to be looking for in your project around the identifying a problem process? Identifying your problem, your process and your research comes into the 2 categories on this rubric, the relevance category and the creativity category. So with the relevance, we're looking at the nature of the problem you identified. Is it relevant? Is it needed? Is it a good, worthy problem to solve? In creativity, we're looking at your outcome and your process. Is it new? Is it inventive? Is it innovative? So both the outcome and the process could be new, innovative, and inventive. And we look for your research. We're wanting to see that you have gone and looked at existing solutions and you've identified how yours is going to be different from those existing solutions if they are out there already. The good news is there's lots of other resources on the Samsung Solve for Tomorrow website that will help support you in this particular part of your process. The 2 that are posted up there that are related to identifying a problem and researching are how to research into a brief and writing attributes for a brief.
So now we're going to focus on looking at the senior category for Solve for Tomorrow, which is looking at and supporting years 11 to 13 in this space. So with this age category, we have some key questions throughout the webinar series that we're going to be focusing on to help and support our senior students with the competition. So our key question that we have for this one is, does the solution solve a worthy problem? And it's coming back to that idea of authentic context. And so these are just some ideas of where you can go to have a look, to observe, to talk to people, to try and find a really great problem to solve. So ideas for authentic context could be something in your school related to obviously the students or the staff or even the parents in the community. Is there something there that will help and support them? Can you reach out to local iwi or hapu in the region? Can you reach out to your local community and the community groups that are out there? There are lots of volunteer groups out there that need help and support in different ways. So you can reach out to some of those. And also linked to that could be your local environment. We've all got unique environments in around our schools, which will actually really make our context very authentic and very real, depending on where you're based across Aotearoa. Some of your contexts could be regional contexts, so something that's going to help and support not just the local people, but also go out wider. And then this could even possibly and potentially in the future go nationally and global as well. So at this level, you may end up with an authentic context, which could actually go much wider in the future too. So when we're looking at stakeholders, there are a wide range of different stakeholders. So something that you need to be aware of is throughout the evidence that you provide for your design process that you go through, we need to see continuous stakeholder engagement. So this is through defining the brief and working through the whole process that you go through. Stakeholders, obviously, they can be the key stakeholder, the primary stakeholder, which is usually the end user or users. However, at this level, you need to have a wide range of stakeholder engagement. So that means we do expect to see some other people that you have talked to and gained feedback from throughout the process. You can see there are some different suggestions here. So it could be the people that you work with in your class or across classes in your school or across year levels potentially. It could be reaching out to teachers. So it may be your current teacher that you're working with, or if there's an expert in a different area, you may need to go and talk to others and others in your school community too. There may be some experts. You may need to reach out to scientists or technologists or other designers out there to try and actually get some ideas and inspiration to help and support you through the process too. Don't forget all the local community groups around your area as well, and your iwi and the tangata whenua in the space that we are in as well. Looking at a different point of view, if you're designing a product, it is important at a senior level to think of the whole process. So you're not just thinking about the design of the final outcome and how it's used, but you're considering where the materials are coming from. Are they sustainable materials? What is the life cycle of this product? What will happen when people have finished using it? How will they dispose of it? Will that affect the environment? So we need to look at that bigger view. And to help us with that, you may need to link out to and contact, say, manufacturers who create products similar to this, or certain materials that you may need, or distributors. So you need to think a little bit wider and look at a broader range of stakeholders throughout your design process. Some other ways to think about authentic context. Where can you find authentic context? If you're struggling to come up with ideas and you're maybe not so confident about going and talking to people in your area, then have a look, keep an eye out for different things. So something that I used to do when I was trying to find local context for teaching was actually keep an eye on my local newspapers. There are lots and lots of different kinds of news stories that are coming out, which makes things, they identify things that are going on in the community that may need some help and support. And that way you can also talk to your local community groups. Sometimes you can keep an eye on these groups in your local social media. I know that many of you may be using social media, and so keep an eye on some of those different volunteer groups in your community. What do they need? What do they want? Can you visit your local marae? Do they have anything that they can help and support with? They love people going to help and support them in their area. And also, if you want to look at that wider field, you can look at the news, so national news, and globally, a good place to start could be looking at the UN Sustainable Development Goals. So there are 17 goals, as you can see on the image on the slide, and they all link to different aspects of society that need help and support. And so you can use these as a starting point to start some brainstorming, get some ideas flowing, and see how you can potentially link these overarching goals to maybe some regional or local authentic context to help and support you too.
We've had Samsung Solve for Tomorrow competition running in New Zealand now for a number of years, and we're lucky because it means that we've got a source of great projects that have been submitted in previous years that we're able to pull out and use as exemplars. And we have got a couple here that we'd like to use to show you around authentic context in projects. So the first of them was a project that was undertaken by Mount Richmond Special School in Auckland in 2022. It's called Kitchen Tools Reimagined, and the idea around that was that they had a student in their class who found it very difficult to use a standard kitchen knife safely, and it really limited her ability to engage with the group activities whenever they were in the kitchen. And they wanted to remove that barrier to participation by designing a knife or a cutting implement that was going to solve that problem for her, that she could use it safely. So they had a really very, very clear, authentic need that they had established in a very small group, their immediate group of people around them. You can see there the stakeholder, the original stakeholder, her name was Renee, and you can see that they did some initial processing around looking at how she was using a standard knife, and then they used that to come up with some potential solutions for that. The second project that we'd like to use as an example of this is one that was called Brooklyn's Nighttime Hero by Brooklyn Johns, and that was in 2021. And he had a very, very simple problem that he had identified within his family, and that was his younger sibling who kept losing his comfort toy, his teddy, at night, and he wanted to solve that problem for that sibling. And so he kept it very, very authentic and very tight and very defined with his problem. And you can see there that he'd gone into a bit of research into that into that particular problem, and he had got to the point where he had identified some of the physical and some functional attributes that he felt his solution needed to come up with. And a bunch of considerations, it can't be a choking hazard, has to be sturdy so they can't chew it, all of those sorts of things. We're coming into that original kind of front end where he was identifying his problem and coming up with some of those ideas that might help solve it. Some examples of projects that have used stakeholders really well throughout the project. The first one that we're talking to here is one called Beautify the Berms by Harrison Maxwell in 2021. So his idea was that he wanted to find a better way to make use of the berms that run, the council property berms that run in front of all of the residents, to make them more beautiful and make them more functional and make them address the need around keep mowing them and things like that. In his project, he had a very, very effective way of reaching out to a very wide stakeholder group really efficiently. He got his mum to put a survey up on Facebook, and he got over 950 responses and comments and feedback on that survey. So really, really efficient way of going out there and asking a question, testing whether your problem is viewed as being realistic by people, authentic by people, and getting some feedback on how people feel about you potentially solving that problem for them. He also approached experts. He used another stakeholder group was that around experts. He approached someone from Plant Health UK and spoke to them about possible solutions. Mount Richmond Special School Kitchen Knives project used stakeholders really well. They partnered with several other organisations, as you can see from the slide here, and they sought expertise across different aspects of their project. So they talked to academics, they talked to health and safety experts, they talked to 3D printing technicians, manufacturers, design consultants and disability specialists. So a huge range of stakeholders that they went out there into the community and had conversations with, and it formed the basis of their research and also gave them a group of people that they'll be able to talk to later when they wanted to test and evaluate their project. A really solid example of stakeholder engagement throughout the entire process.
The scoring sheet for the senior category for the Samsung Solve for Tomorrow competition focuses clearly on does the solution solve a worthy problem question. So as you can see here on the score sheet for the senior category for the Solve for Tomorrow competition, we are focusing clearly in this area on the key question of does the solution solve a worthy problem? The key areas that we are looking at is you have provided substantial evidence of having identified an authentic need or opportunity through research and brief development, and that you have provided evidence of continuous stakeholder feedback which has aided iteration and modification throughout the project. You have also utilised a wide range of stakeholders for their feedback to help you to progress the project itself. If you would like to access these slides, you can do so by clicking on the bit.ly link at the top or by scanning the QR code. Be aware that this webinar obviously is recorded and it is available on the Samsung Solve for Tomorrow competition website, or it will be available on the TENZ YouTube channel as well. And we will finish this webinar today with our final karakia. Ki amato katoa. Kua mutu mato ia mato mahi ia mato kaupapa foki. Arahina mato, kia koe, mato ia mato he papa, kia whakatapua, mato ki ngā kaupapa, me ngā mea e whakapono. Manakitia mai mato. Kia ora.